Hello and welcome into the Section 109 podcast from Studio Breezy. I'm here with Matthew, Sir Mix-a-Lot, Bubble Juan, the GOAT, and we are here to talk about a, quite frankly, very depressing loss, Matthew, our first home loss of the season. How are we doing now that I've brought us down on the vibe check?
I've had a couple days. The day after was pretty rough, not going to lie. It really sucked. That evening sucked as well, come to think of it. Yeah, losing at home sucks. Always does.
Losing in general sucks.
Never will get better. Losing a game where you play like shit really does suck. Losing to a relatively bad team on the bounce also sucks. And you know, I didn't realize that until literally just now, us sitting here right now. That's our first home loss in like 20 months.
Regular season. Let's not do this ties aren't losses thing, especially in the fucking playoffs.
Ties aren't losses.
You're such.
But yeah, like
we lost in the playoffs.
Yeah.
At home.
Okay, fine.
Right, you can regular season this away, but you cannot argue that we didn't lose to Flower City in the playoffs.
We did not lose to Flower City in the playoffs. We did not advance on penalties. No, but seriously, like that's the
dumbest technicality take of all time.
That's the last time we truly got beat on the field and not in some penalty shootout.
Was Miami United at home earlier this season.
I blocked that out of my memory. I just pretended that didn't exist.
In the league,
okay, yeah. So
in the regular season, we
yeah.
haven't lost in a very, very, very long time.
Probably. I mean, legitimately, it's Cal United would have been in August, so we're closer to 22 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Listen, Matthew, you're gonna lose some games, and occasionally you're gonna lose at home,
especially in this league.
And on a night that we were not good enough, Carolina Core was actually good, and the referee was terrible. Like, you're just going to lose that game. Mix is going to protect us.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, look, we were shocking. To start the game. Just misplaced passes, bad first touches.
Mixie.
You know, I thought we came out just incredibly flat and a little bit lethargic. And like it was hot, but it was hot for both teams, right? It's just not the way you want to start. We opened that game like we were playing the team at the bottom of the table. And you know, the underlying data on Core, number one, you have to remember Core have played 2 home matches total this year. I think, and they just opened at home, I think on June 1st. They played their first 7 matches on the road. I think that was only their 10th match, maybe. 11th, or I guess 12th match. And so look, their results haven't been good. I think their underlying data shows that they're a little bit better than what their points total is, what their win-loss record is right now. And I think we're, you know, as we figure out this league, there seems to be a lot of parity in terms of the quality of teams. And I think every team has, we've said this on this podcast many times this year, every team in this league has a bunch of skill players that can beat you on any given day. Everyone's got technical players. Everyone can keep the ball a little bit. You know, we have not seen until really this game. Core didn't show it at all in the first game we played against them. A team that was just willing to go direct and only direct. And I think part of that is because once they got their first goal, it was just the safer option. And sometimes you play direct off of a press because that's what we came out to try to press a little bit.
I mean, their first goal is just from them going direct.
It's just direct.
It wasn't just after the first goal. They just went direct most of the game.
And that's something that, I imagine teams will look at that tape and be like, oh, okay, cool. But also, like, Crown Legacy went a little bit direct on us, especially after their opening goal, and the last time we played Crown Legacy in Matthews, and that's just something we're gonna have to get used to. But yeah, we were pretty bad. There's no sugarcoating that, and if you play bad, other team has a good game plan, is able to punch you in the mouth early, it can be tough to overcome that.
I mean, they didn't just have a good game plan; they also just played well.
Yeah.
They split us open repeatedly. They dragged players out of position. They created chances. Like, and I don't want to dwell on it all night. Like, we are, and it's going to be one of my first key takeaway. Like, we are not as bad as we looked in this game, and we are not as good as we looked in the Miami game. Like, there's just games that, like, it's something you said, 24-4, right? Like, it's 4 games you're going to be untouchable, 4 games you're going to be terrible, and then the other 20 games, like, what do you do? And this is just one of those where we were terrible, and it sucks it happens at home, and it sucks that the referee was absolutely god awful, and it sucks that we came out and I mean, there's like 10 different players that had stinkers this game, maybe not 10, maybe like 8, but like, it just is what it is. Like, sometimes you're not good enough, and even though Jean saved the penalty in this game, which would have made it much worse than it was, like, we just weren't good enough.
Yeah.
And, oh well. Let's just get into the facts of the game instead of dwelling on how much it sucks to lose.
So, lineup, G91 in goal. Farid Sarzar kept us placed in the starting lineup, moving to right back, welcoming back Anatoly Prepelida into the starting lineup, a right center back, Duven Viafara at left center back, Joseph Perez at left back, Jude Arthur as the 6, Andres and Alex and in midfield as well. Taylor Gray on the right. Minjae Kwok got a second straight start in a row. He moved to left wing with Mehdi Wamri at striker. Minjae moving to left wing. Your first thought is, where is Jesus Ibarra? Well, he's injured. And
we missed his presence a lot.
We definitely did, and
especially in the control portion of the game. We did not control the game as much, in part because he was not. I mean, we've been playing up his wing for 10 straight games probably, and it was not the same.
And his ability,
level of control on that wing with us keeping the ball and recycling the ball and making dangerous things.
His ability to keep the ball in close quarters has also allowed us to get the ball out to Taylor Gray in space.
Mm-hmm. And to get numbers forward.
Yeah, so that's going to be a big miss. That was a big miss on Saturday. It's going to be a big miss for a while. I don't have any good details on it, but it's expected to be some matter of weeks. So yeah, that's something that we're also going to have to overcome going forward. Is refilling that production. Coming into the match, he'd been involved in 36% of the team's goals on the year. I think he had 5 goals, 4 assists, or is it 2 and 2 on the assist and hockey assist? I think it's 2 and 2, but all of them, yeah, it's 2 and 2. All 4 of those, or both primaries and both secondaries, count as full assists in this league. So, like, just showing you how involved he was even in those hockey assists. So yeah, that's a huge one. 4th minute, Carolina scores. It's a long ball. And then
when we pressed them, they continually just went over the top, and it wasn't the only way they got into space. But like, our press was not effective in turning them over. When the ball went back to the goalkeeper, he kicked it long, and it found its target. It found guys in space much more often than has been in the past at any point this season against anybody. Like, they had it figured out that they were going to go long when we pressed, and instead of us winning a lot, most of the time this season when somebody goes long, like, we win the ball, especially in the middle.
Right.
But they didn't go to the middle at all. They went to the wing every single time.
They went after Farid's side and after JP's side.
And we
routinely.
And they not only did they go after those sides, but they hit it where they weren't.
Right.
And the first goal comes because it goes right over JP's head because it's hit too long for him to get there. They had a very good game plan and a very good execution of that game plan. And if it's harder to do than it looks. Otherwise, more teams would do it. But also something to be mindful of. Like, we can't press if we're just getting continually bypassed and murdered one-on-one.
Yeah, and then that's basically what happened. Like a great ball into Konate. He turns a couple of times and is able to slot it home in the far corner. And it's 1-0 early. 20th minute, we're not able to.
It's 1-0 in the third minute, by the way. Fourth minute.
Fourth minute,
it's like 3:20 in. You just can't give up a chance that early.
Well, it's one of those things that we've been fortunate enough to do this season, which is scoring your first shot of the game. And especially when you score in your first shot of the game, whether it's in the 4th minute, 10th minute,
it changes everything.
Goals change games. And
I didn't know we scored until they got the penalty, and I turned around and it was 1-0, and I was like, they can't believe they messed up the scoreboard, assuming that they scored that penalty.
Oh, something interesting happened in that game.
Because I was giving out Ricola, and I have no idea when they scored. I only saw it back on replay afterwards.
They didn't update the scoreboard for a few minutes in the no one just updated the scoreboard after they scored.
I'm just telling you, it was 1-0 in the 18th minute or whenever we concede the penalty that Gene saves. And I was like, why does it say 1-0? He just saved the penalty. I had no fucking idea they scored. I had no idea. I had to ask somebody at halftime if that was real. I swear to God.
Okay. Well, at least...
when the second goal happened is when I started asking people, because then they changed it to 2-0, and I was like... I was very confused.
Yeah. It went from zeros to 2.
It was no, it didn't. It was 1-0. I promise you, because I turned around when I looked over on the penalty, I was like, 1-0. He just saved that. I can't believe they changed it early. It was already. I was already up.
So there had to be some scoreboard issues, because when the second goal was scored, it was reading 0-0 on the scoreboard.
Well, they might have changed it back, but I'm just telling you.
So like there was,
I turned to Jay on the Capitol stand, and I was like, "What the fuck, did they score?" And he goes, "I think so, maybe. I'm not really sure." And then I went and like grabbed somebody, and I was like, "Did they?" I grabbed Thomas Johns. I was like, "They scored?" And he was like, "Yeah, they scored like 3 minutes in or 4 minutes in or something." I was like, "What?" I was very confused.
Yeah,
that's what I get for giving out Ricola. It was so early. I just didn't know.
Yeah. So 20th minute, there's a sequence in the middle of the field. We're unable to come up with the ball, and everyone's behind the play at this point. And I'm sorry, no, that's a different sequence. A ball kind of just squirts out, and we've got no midfield at the time. Duvan steps to try to win the ball, and commits a foul. PK is called. Konate steps up, takes it. It's pretty well taken, but unbelievable save by Jean-Antoine.
It's a wonderful save.
Just ridiculous.
It's a wonderful save. It's also the second game in a row we've conceded a PK. And just on a dump. Like, I understand the guy's going to get a good shot off, but like, you either can't get there late or you got to let the guy go through. Like, you just can't miss that. That's 2 in a row, 2 penalties in a row that are from 2 different players that are very preventable. And we just have to be sharper. And we're in a lull. We're in a dip of form.
Well, let's talk about that a little later, because I think there's some reasonable reasons for that. If you're thinking, well, we've given up an early goal, now we've given up a penalty that was saved. Surely this will spark some life into the game. Not really. JP has a really nice sequence where he's able to get around 2 players at once, get a shot off that was wide. But there's not a lot of attacking danger.
Well, and they score 30 seconds after he hits that wide. They score on their next possession.
Yeah. So we get at the 29th minute. A ball squirts out of midfield. I think Duvan's up there trying to step and win it. He's unable to. It just gets out to the wing back, who's isolated. It's really like a kind of a 2-on-3, but kind of a 3-on-3 type situation. Our midfield's trying to get back, but is really mostly out of the play. Carolina's wing back squares up on Farid and just does his best Allen Iverson impression.
Good reference.
and is able to go by him, and crosses the ball in on the ground low, tap in. I think there's some question looking at the stream if Rodriguez is onside on for the cutback. It's kind of hard to tell. There's some.
I couldn't tell.
There's some people on the internet that swear he's offside. I'm gonna agree with them for the banter's sake. But yeah, 29th minute, 2-0. In a huge bummer there. We get to halftime. There's a couple more shots, but nothing dangerous, nothing inside the box.
No, there's a cutback in the box before that absolutely should have been a goal. Cut back to like the edge of the six from them, and he just hits it over.
For Carolina. Yeah, I was ignoring that part. It was not a great first half. We get
still somehow not as bad as we played against Orlando in the first half. I'm just saying. We were worse against Orlando.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, halftime. Rod makes 3 substitutions at halftime.
When was the last time we saw that?
I mean, I could probably look it up for you.
I think it's never.
I think it's never, for sure.
Takes out both outside backs and takes out Minjay at wings. We replaces a winger and 2 outside backs. And so Jesse and Milo come in. Milo at left back, Jesse at right back, and then Taylor switches sides, I guess, to the left side.
Taylor goes to the left
side.
side.
Jalen comes in on the right side for Minjay, but Minjay was playing on the left, I guess, to start the game.
I thought Taylor's move to the left wing really. It was like watching kind of old Taylor again, a little bit.
Sure, we were much better in the second half. We were not good. We were not. It was a little bit more even game in the second. We just watched the 1915. We weren't good. We weren't the better team, but we were not getting absolutely just massacred. They were just a little better than us in the second half.
It was the first time. It's probably the first time we've played against a true like next pro bunker. Which makes sense. Like it's 2-0 at halftime. It's a team that's won 1 game on the season. You know, you're playing away from home. You know, all the time wasting type stuff, all the fouls were back in force. I think that's a huge conversational piece, especially after we score the after Jalen James gets his goal to pick us back to 2-1.
With which what a goal!
I mean, it's up for goal of the week. Like it's nasty.
Their second goal is actually something that we've talked about a lot, which is we talked about especially last year. Like when CFC is good, especially last year. This year it's a little bit less so, but last year we needed a winger to beat a guy in order to destabilize the defense in order for us to score. That was last year.
Yeah.
This year I would argue we've had a few more varied ways of scoring. Other than last year we were free kicks and winger beating a guy. Now winger would beat a guy and then we would create something, right? It wasn't like the winger beat a guy and then scored all the time. This year we're a little more varied, but what he did to us is what we wanted to see us do last year, and what we want to see guys do this year is like get a one-on-one and beat a guy. Last year and this year too, but especially last year, we never got those one-on-one fullback on winger. That's not where you want to be, right? And when you have a center back out wide and he's in the box trying to defend, like he can't foul. And that's where we get roasted. We didn't see us have a chance to do that in the second half, except for Jalen James and his cut in, where he just beats 2 guys and lashes it home.
Yeah, I think
there's also, if you watch the 1915, Taylor beats guys and puts in dangerous balls quite a few times. And on a different day, one of those turns into a more dangerous chance. But because it was, like you said, an ex-pro bunker, which we made it really difficult to get stuff, we just weren't getting shots. We were danger adjacent pretty often in the second half, but we were never dangerous enough.
Right. And I would argue we were actually never dangerous, period.
We were danger adjacent.
Yeah. I mean, like the goal is fantastic, but it's outside the box.
I mean, it's one of the reasons that the expected goals are so lopsided, because all of our danger didn't result in shots.
Right. So let's finish up the subs real quick, and then we'll get into some other things. Before Jalen's goal, 70th minute, Luis Garcia Sosa comes in for Andres. 76th minute is the Jalen James goal off a big diagonal from Anatoly into some space. 86th minute, Carlos Rivas subs on for Jude Arthur, who's on a yellow card that he picked up right at the end of the first half. And the 90th minute...
I can't believe Carlos Rivas paid the 6. Just kidding.
90th minute, I don't know if it's... I should have looked on the 90 and 15. I don't know if it's like right at 90 minutes. I think it's at like 90 plus 2, 3, something like that. Anatoly's shown a second yellow card for a foul that I think some people thought was dubious at the time.
I had a pretty good angle on it. And he just puts his he marks up the guy, like he looks at him, he sizes him up, and he puts his shoulder through him. I think you could, if you want to make the argument that it was a foul, but he wasn't going to get to the ball, and there's another player back, therefore it's not a yellow. Because it's not dog so. It's clearly not dog so in any form of the thing. It is definitely a foul in my view. But you could claim it was shoulder to shoulder or a little bit shoulder to shoulder, and like claim it was like inadvertent, right? And like that makes it a foul but not a yellow. I would be willing to hear that argument.
I think you can claim it's not a foul based on how the game was refereed in general.
That is also a little more reasonable, yes. I will say that by the letter of the law, it's just a clear yellow.
That's your get out of jail free card. Is that, well, like we've been letting a lot of things go, like been letting a lot of. I think it's also reasonable to give.
He didn't start making big calls until when they held up the 8 minutes left. He gave Alex Sutton their goalkeeper finally gave him a yellow after he went 15 seconds multiple times with the ball. Just let him waste even though he would whistle, wave for him, and then like let him have 10 or 11 seconds after that, which is the rule is 7 seconds. It's fucking bananas. In this league, they have time wasting rules that they are supposed to enforce, and when they enforce them, it's good. And he did none of it. He was too chicken shit to make any big calls, including second yellows for them, until we got to extra time. And then once we got to extra time, game was almost over. Gives Anatoly a second yellow. Finally gives him a yellow for time wasting. And the referee is not the reason we lost this game. To be clear, he was terrible and he made it worse for us. But like we weren't good enough. So I don't want the alibi to be like, oh, the referee was terrible. The referee was also terrible. But like,
and unusually so for this year for us.
Right. This year we haven't talked about much about the referees. It's been basically 2 games where we've been like, boy, the referee was fucking terrible in this game. And like last year in the last few years in NISA, like it's a rarity that the referee is solid.
This is a referee that like, this is the type of performance I would have expected in NISA.
Yes.
This is the type of performance I would expect if we were in League One. Because that is this caliber. Simply put, that's not someone coming back anytime soon. And
I mean, I don't know about that.
I'm put it out into the world, not allowed back in town anytime soon. Just because, like, okay, so so like, let's, before people start thinking that I'm threatening somebody, if you're a referee assigner, you have a guy that goes and does a game somewhere and very clearly does not measure up to the game, whether it's the crowd, whether it's the intensity. And
the whole refereeing staff or the whole refereeing crew was bad.
Right.
The offsides calls there's no way all of them were offside. Several of them, including Medis, which was clearly on.
It's a crew that does not referee the game. They're refereeing themselves in the moment, and they're terrified because they're bad. They're terrified that they don't want to get accused of home cooking.
The fourth watched their coaching staff run a yard onto the field and back while standing right there and just watch them do it. That's a red card. Like, you cannot run onto the field to protest a call. Like the head coach can occasionally get away with stepping onto the field, but the assistants can't.
Right.
Like, and the assistants were sitting basically like a yard off the field. Had the lines judge, had she been running the other direction to judge offside, she would have gotten run over. It was blatant. The dude was standing 5 yards. I looked at him. He was watching them. Fourth didn't do anything. Didn't even say anything.
Right.
Like they were too chicken shit to make any like big calls.
That's a crew that's got assigned to that game as probably their first ever game, like stepping up into an environment.
That's a NISA crew.
And failed miserably.
That's a NISA crew.
That's a crew that an assigner is not sending back anytime soon. Because number one,
I hope so.
Number one, you've got 2 big concerns that we're going to lose our shit at them.
I mean, I hope we do. Mixie.
And number 2, that either they try to like double down on that, the refereeing crew tries to double down on their performance and do it again, or that they go the complete opposite way. They try to make amends for a bad performance.
I mean, I would take that.
Yeah, but that's not. You want referees to judge calls based on what they see on the field, and not judge calls by what if. I don't want the assigner to think that that's a close one. I'm not really sure if he's on or offside. The crowd thinks he's onside. You know what? Like, I can't be influenced by this crowd. I'm putting my flag up. He's offside. That's you don't want that. That's a sign of a bad referee. That happens. That's happened to us a lot.
I did feel like they doubled down on every bad call.
Right.
Like the more the crowd kept getting into it. Mixie, would you stop being annoying? Come here, buddy. Come here. Just hang out with me. Every bad call that went, it felt like the next one was even more emphatic.
Right.
Right. It was
that's a bad crew. That crew's not welcome in town for a very long time. Now,
I hope the assigners are paying enough attention.
Now, that being said, we have seen this happened more at our amateur days. We have seen awful referees come through
multiple weeks in a row.
And
the same referee.
And then the same referee come back a year later and be better.
No, that was one guy.
Yes, but I'm going to use that example over and over and over again because referees can get better. They do need to experience these games. That's just a fact of life. They're just supposed to go to League One for it because no one gives a shit about League One.
I don't even know what that is. I recognize the TST, the Open Cup.
By the way,
and MLS Next Pro.
In case you're curious, there's 13 yellow cards in this game.
There should have been about 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them should have been earlier.
And
he was too.
There are several.
It was just not consistent.
There were several Carolina players that should have been sent off for a second yellow card.
Yeah.
Long before Tolley.
Correct. And that is, again, we're not trying to give alibis because we weren't good enough to win on this night, even if we get a yellow card that helps us, right? Like,
no.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, that's the game. XG, CFC's numbers, 0.77 from the CFC XG.
That feels about right
station.
After having watched.
Analysis Evolved had us at 0.64, which also feels right. It's in the same ballpark. The CFC number for Carolina Core was 2.21 plus a PK. Analysis Evolved had Carolina Core at 2.39, including the PK. So a bit of a difference there, but like we're talking about 0.6. It's all in the model. Ours is done live as well. Also, models are just different. So you as with any piece of data like that's model based, like, you know, the point is Carolina created enough for 2 goals and maybe then some, and CFC did not even create a goal's worth.
Yeah, correct.
Of XG.
And
based on the game, that feels right.
Yeah, correct.
So, let's dive into the mailbag a little bit. Let's also talk about some just general thoughts about the game, about the season, about things.
What time is it?
1:28.
Okay, let's go.
So I'm turning this one over to you.
I don't have a computer. What do you wanting me to
not
mailbags?
Not mailbag, but we'll start to get into the mailbag.
Okay.
But like I turning attention away from the game itself, except for like general thoughts about a league that has a lot of parity, that et cetera. Et cetera.
Yeah.
You had thoughts on this, and I wanted to.
Yeah, we were talking about this briefly before the podcast. I mean, I think I'll actually just give you my very first or one of my key takeaways, which is like this is a league that prioritizes young attacking talent, and it's like got a lot of young, poor defensive performances. Not that all the defenders are poor, but like there's some poor defending that happens. Our spine needs to be strong. It has been our point of like strength all season. It's the reason I think we're overperforming our XG on the defensive end. But even if you took that away, we're still one of the best teams defensively in the league. And last night Saturday night we were not. We just weren't good defensively. We were not great. We're not good defensively against Orlando. We're in a little bit of a slump, and all of these teams can punish you. So I think we're still in a. I still think we're a good team, right? 2 poor games does not make a bad team. In Rod Underwood's tenure, we've seen teams have slumps or lulls in the time during the season. So if you're looking at a graph, like, and we're hopefully trending up, the farther out you zoom, the more like uniform it looks, but it's never uniform. So I think we're playing in a league where anybody can beat you on any night. We've seen like, you read me a stat that Philly's we have a better expected goals defensively than Philly has, right?
Yeah,
but Philadelphia is also like clearly, at least thus far, the best team in the East.
Right.
But they've also lost twice to Cincinnati in the last like 10 games, right?
Yeah, there are only 2 losses of the season, but yes.
So, but where I'm going with that is like it has a weird amount of parity for anybody being able to beat you on any given night.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to continue. We have to get back to what we do, which is limiting overall opportunities, getting control again, and then defending well. And then the offense will come, but even if it doesn't, we'll be competitive. But you can't go down what could have or should have been 3-0 in the first half.
Right.
That is just what you can't do. And we had a stinker here, and we get it out of the way.
Against any team.
Right. And
any team at any team at any level, if you go down 2 at halftime, like that's an uphill battle.
Yeah, and we should have been down 3-0, but for an individual moment of brilliance from Gene, and like phenomenal job, not taking anything away. It's also why you should include penalties a little bit separately. But like penalties get converted at a 70% clip, like, and in some leagues at an 80% clip. Like,
yeah, I think we subscribe to the 0.79 XG on every penalty.
So I just think we're playing in a league with a lot of parity. We can still be competitive throughout the rest of the season. We can still be really good throughout the regular season. But we have to get back to what we were doing well before this little slump. And look, actually, if you just go back and you look at our performances dipped drastically once Tolley got hurt. So I called him my MVP earlier on. I think he's been the MVP of the first half of the season. He's been unbelievable defensively and really, really good offensively. And he was out for 5 games, and we didn't have the same ceiling offensively and defensively without Tolley that we had with him.
5 games.
I think it was 5 games, wasn't it?
No, it was 3. It was he got hurt against Atlanta. It was New England, where we were not.
New England, Chicago, Orlando. Okay. This is his first game back from injury, 3 games. So still, that is still arguably 3 worst performances outside of the first Atlanta game away, like, of our season.
No, I don't think Chicago was that bad. I thought Chicago was decent.
I'm talking about New England, Chicago, Orlando, and this one.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
This was not like, I think this was not the same Tolley back yet.
No.
He's not at 100%. I am counting that as part of his injury thing. But our spine in general, look, Gene did what he could do, but I didn't see a lot from Jude running around. I didn't see a lot of tackles. Also didn't see tons of the game. Andres, I didn't see a ton of like great saving whatevers. We subbed both of our fullbacks at halftime, and we'll leave it at that. And then Duvon gave up a penalty, got bypassed on the second goal, and wasn't there on the first goal. So like, I'm not laying it on his shoulders. I'm just saying, like, we didn't have the normal, like, our center backs are the difference maker and our defensive midfielder is the difference maker kind of game. Like those 3 plus our outside backs, like, positions have been the difference makers in many, many games. Yeah. And we talked earlier about like how many, or not just earlier in this podcast, earlier in a different podcast, about how many blocks that you and I feel like we have. And one of the reasons why I think we are outperforming our expected goals is because we have good, experienced players who just block a hell of a lot of shots and get in good positions and play experienced professional soccer against sometimes some young kids. And in this game, we didn't have that for whatever reason. And oh well, it's 1 game.
Yeah.
But like, if we don't, and against Orlando, so if you want to like zoom out and like give like the optimistic take, like this was a stinker and we laid a stinker on an unbelievably hot day with a guy coming back from injury and some players that didn't have their best game. And then last game, the field was absolutely atrocious. We're on the road, we're on grass. We came out a little not sharp, and it's just a 2-game aberration, hopefully. But also it's a little bit harder because we're, I think, pretty clearly in a slump because while we did play great against Chicago overall, or really well against Chicago overall, you go back a game and we didn't play well against New England. How much of that is due to these teams getting better and figuring it out, and how much of that is due to just us in a lull? I tend to think it's a little of column A, a little column B.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I don't expect to watch us continue to be beaten in the performance side like we have been 3 of the past 4 games. I think we're just in a little slump. We'll put it back together, and we're having a little break right now, which is my third key takeaway. I think I will have now mentioned all of them. We're going to this 1-week break essentially, right?
Yeah, just the weekend off.
Yeah, so that is good. and hopefully that means guys can get a little time to recover. You didn't see who was out this game injured that could have come back in.
I mean, Jesus was injured. Callum.
That's what it was.
So Callum was back in the
Callum was
match
back in the
day
lineup,
squad.
but he didn't play. Gives him a whole another 2 weeks to recover. I mean, we need bodies. I mean, in part because look how many minutes Alex has played after he got absolutely cleaned out. Was shocked he started. He got cleaned out and subbed out end of last game. It was last game, right? And in the Orlando game. Yeah. Also, don't forget, if anybody's we stole 2 points against Orlando.
We've stolen a few points this season.
Not like Orlando.
Not like Orlando, but in similar, we've stolen some points this season. And I think something that's telling, we are running, what was the number I had? We're running per game something like 0.72 expected goals.
I don't like combining the numbers. Because I think you can tell a different offensive and defensive story, and combining the numbers, there's not a lot of I think you can't combine them. I don't think you can combine them unless you want to tell a story that we're bad. If you're trying to tell that story, that supports that.
No.
But when you combine the numbers, I don't think there's noise in those numbers, and combining those numbers is not fair. Unless you're going to combine the whole rest of the league, because we don't know.
So
you're making it look like we're fucking terrible by combining those numbers.
No, that's not what you running super hot or running super cold on your expected goals versus your actual doesn't mean you're good or doesn't mean you're bad. What it does mean is you're running super hot. And part of that could be, well, do you score in your do you score in your first shot of the game?
That says nothing about this game.
Yeah, but I'm doing generalities now. Do you score in your first shot of the game? That affects game state. That affects how the game is played out. Are you a team that is a lot better in transition when the other team is pressing up? Okay, well, maybe if you're able to get an early goal and stretch the game and get on the break, then you can rack up some XG in that kind of game environment. The converse is true. You might be just really happy to accept
inverse Converse or shoes.
Good call. You might be able to accept a bunch of 0.1 and 0.15 type shots with a bunch of numbers back because you're pretty happy with your defense and you're able to absorb pressure in a way that you can't necessarily do if you don't have the lead from early situation. So I'm not going to use it to say we're good or bad, but we are running hot. We've been running hot offensively all year, much more dramatically than running hot, quote unquote, defensively. I have a theory about us, our expected goals defensively being a little higher than our goals. And the only metric I have is that we're also still the third or fourth best team in defensive XG on the season, per match. So obviously running a little hot on the defensive side isn't hurting us because God only knows what everybody else is running, right? There's a reason why we're still on 28 points after 15 games. But I do think that offensive number is interesting, and I do think that the kind of the XG table and our placement in it is a little concerning. Now, that being said, I think, well, you got to remember, Jude wasn't in for preseason. He wasn't in for the first part of the season. Duvan didn't have a preseason. Medi didn't have a preseason. Callum didn't have a preseason. Callum's also been hurt he's played 160 minutes, basically the entire first half of the season. So you have all these things going on. Now Jesus goes down. Who's a locked on starter for this team. There's a lot of flux going on right now. And I guess what I'm trying to say is this team is still good enough to pick up a bunch of points. You asked me, are we going to get 28 points again? And I mostly dodged the question, but I said I'm a little worried about it, basically. because I figured there'd be some sort of regression. This is the type of game where
This game is not regression, though.
no, we were just bad. But also, ask me in like 5 weeks. Like, was it the start of like regression?
No, it's regression in performance, but not regression in luck. We're still under. In any case, they only scored 2, and every model except for the one weird one you didn't even mention, like, has us over 2 goals, expected goal without the penalty.
No, correction. Only the CFC model does. The other one includes the penalty at 2.34 or 2.39 or whatever.
Okay.
But like, I guess my point is like, there's performance can also be regression. But the larger point that I want to make, and then we'll do some mailbag, is this team needs to get better. I didn't need one game and one bad game, to be clear, to know that. Like, this team still needs to get better. They have a long way to go to where we want to be, to where we need to be. And sometimes you need games like this to like really show you, what you need to work on. And I guess that's that.
By the way, a little takeaway that I have that's a little bit of a hot take, but I think if Andres is going to play, we need to play double pivot, because the strength of our team going back to the single pivot was Andres and Jude alongside of each other, and our defense was really locked down. Ever since we've gone back to the 2-8/10s, our defense hasn't been exclusively bad, because we've had some good games too, but we have not been offensively dominant or brilliant. And I think as personnel-wise goes, Andres had his best games playing a little deeper with the game in front of him and distributing out from there. And if Andres is going to be the starting 8 or 8/10, I think that's a problem. I think he needs to be a starting 6/8. I think we were more dangerous and more balanced and more in control, especially with him playing deeper and then him distributing out. Anyway, that's my hot take on how we may need to evolve.
I think that's a go one. All right, mailbag for you.
Also, we're just going to be really tough to control games without Jesus.
Yeah. Ross Singer asks, are Carolina core always like this? Divey and mouthy.
Yeah, they. I don't know, because I don't care enough about them to watch any of their shit.
Well, you're going to enjoy the next question. Then.
They came in with a real point to prove, and they played this like this was their Super Bowl. Look, CFC has got a 16-year history of playing down to opponents at times, and we played down to them. If you look at our 2 biggest eggs, take out Orlando, because again, you can squint and see, like, on the road, crazy bad rain, field, whatever. Take out Orlando for a second. Our 2 just terrible performances on the road were Atlanta, where they were the bottom of the table, and we came in like they were bottom of the table, and they beat the shit out of us. And this game where Carolina core came to town, and we probably looked at them and were like, bottom of the table. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I think you could look at that and say that and consider that might be what happened, which is something that the team leadership, I don't just mean the coaches, I mean whoever the players are, if that happened, have to correct that on a mentality side. That also may not be what happened, because I didn't see a lack of effort, I saw a lack of sharpness. But like, those 2 can be interrelated.
So I'll answer the part that I know about this. Up until Saturday, they had won 1 game on the season. So Divey, not likely. Nothing to die for to kill time. Mouthy though, yes. Yeah, absolutely. That is a team that loves to talk. They rarely have something to say, and they rarely have something to back it up with. And so when they did, they absolutely took full advantage. And that's life sometimes. I really, it's the Super Bowl thing. It meant a lot to them. And I'm not not totally mad that we get to go back there in like 3 weeks and return the favor. And that's an absolute like must return the favor kind of game. You get another wild game like that, and it might be a derby. There's 13 yellows, man.
I mean, I hope their bus breaks down and it's very hot, and they have to spend 3 hours in the hot sun before going home for sure. But other than that, I don't care about them.
Well, this is going to be a fun question.
Also,
for you.
I wonder if they bust back after the game. They definitely bust down because there's a bus outside from Greenville, South Carolina. They probably bust to a hotel, stayed overnight, and then bust home with the same bus driver. But I wonder.
Which team's beef is sadder, Huntsville or Carolina Core?
Boy, that's a great question.
It's Huntsville, by the way.
It's Carolina Core because they have zero history. At least Huntsville's played for like one whole season or whatever. No one cares about a 2-team, and very clearly that's the case too, because every time we go down there, there's nobody there. But at least Huntsville like has a history of having some fans at some games or whatever else. Like Carolina's a brand new thing. Like I didn't see a single Carolina Core fan there at the game. It's 6 hours away. It's on a Saturday. Like there's no reason for them not to have some traveling fans if they have all of these fans that they allegedly have. Like maybe a parent or somebody was there, but I didn't see a single Carolina Core jersey. At least Huntsville had some people that came up.
Yeah, so on the B front, though, it's still Huntsville.
Why? Because they're a B team?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to be a 2-team, like, cool, own it.
I mean,
but you don't get a beef with a neighbor.
Oh, I don't care about either of them.
Like,
really,
that's not how this works.
I hate Huntsville more because we've now played them and played in their place more. So I just have more familiarity. Plus, like Huntsville just as a city kind of sucks. I don't have a thought about High Point because I don't think it's a real place.
It's not. But in a few weeks, maybe we'll make it a low point for them.
Hey.
No, it's clear. It's clearly Huntsville, by the way. Just like you're designed to care about another team. Like
I mean, it's just neither.
Also, fun fact about Huntsville, they're up to 43 players this season.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I love
the
having
ineptitude of Nashville too is unbelievable.
I love having unlimited money and doing nothing with it. It's like if you or I had unlimited funds and were in like our Todd Bowley era, where like we're actually the stupidest people alive and we're running a sports team. And every time you make a wrong decision, you double down and make 2 more wrong decisions.
They're more like West Ham.
That cost money.
They're more like West Ham than they are like Chelsea. Like Chelsea at least bought promising young players. Like none of their like signings here are like impressive to me or make any sense.
None of them make any sense, but I would argue they are Chelsea because a lot of them are promising. But like, if just like Chelsea, if you buy a young promising player and you play them for 3 games and they don't have 3 hat tricks on the card, you just chop them up and cut them out and send them on their way. Like, wow, why is that not working out for you? Who knew?
It's amazing. Their ineptitude is beautiful, and I can't wait to lose them 4-0 in the next game.
Why did Duvan get yellow carded while on the ground after a foul had been called on Core? I didn't see retaliation, so I am confused. Brian.
We didn't see anything either.
We rewinded the replay several times. I have no idea.
No clue.
Absolutely no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
And we're going to go in a different direction with this mailbag question.
And I wonder the same thing. He either said something, Brian, or the ref thought he retaliated, which I'm not defending that referee. I'm saying those are the only 2 options that I can see because like he gets fouled, the foul gets called, and then, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense.
Let's go in a completely different direction for this last mailbag question. Forget 9-9's record, Marcus. Which, by the way, good to see Marcus back at the match last night, Saturday night.
I didn't see him.
He came to the bar afterwards, which you did not.
Yeah, I was very tired and left my house at 5 a.m. the next morning.
But got to chat with him for a second about
nice.
About Saturday's football sweet run to the quarterfinals.
I wish I could have.
It was good to see him. Anyway, so Justin's saying forget 9-9's record, which is Marcus. What are the odds another CFC player goes over 50 goals for us? would have to be someone too old for the league that stays for 5+ years, right?
Correct.
I mean, yeah, basically.
So
I want to reject too old for the league because like the league is relatively young overall does not mean that a single player is too old for the league.
Let's look what Marcus did, though. Marcus had 3 seasons, and he essentially scored 20...
15, 20, and then 18?
Yeah. And so it can still happen for a young player. But they have to be really dominant and probably not be, which is what Justin's alluding to,
23.
Wanted, quote unquote, by other teams. So if a 22-year-old or 21-year-old comes in here and scores 21 goals, it's very unlikely that we're going to keep them another season.
Yeah.
It's going to make sense for us to move them on to somebody who's going to pay us real money,
right.
get a return on whatever investment we've made, and also give that player a chance to take a step up and move to the next level. So it is. I don't reject the premise of that question. I think that it's a good question. It's more likely to be a 27-year-old or a 28-year-old who comes in and scores 16 or 18 goals, not 20 or 22. Because I think still 20 or 22, you'd get moved on.
Somebody's probably coming in for you.
They're probably more likely to score 15 or 14 or 13 5 years in a row, type of thing, and then. Yes, they can get to that Marcus level of total goals, or in that ballpark rather.
I would imagine it needs to be a lifer kind of player.
Or there's also a world in which we go young at a lot of positions, and then we get a striker that's 30 years old or 29 years old, kind of similar to Marcus's age when he signed here, and that guy does go out and score 20 goals. But maybe they're foreigns, they take up a foreign spot, so that's less likely that an MLS team or a USL Championship team wants them. And maybe they do it in a way that where they have 5 or 6 penalties a year, and so that it gets discounted. And then they just play 3 or 4 seasons, and they can really rack up some whatever. The same way Justin's saying. I do think it's possible. I just think it also shows how special what Marcus did was, shows how special what Luke did was, shows how special what Chris Oching did. Although Chris Oching's down that a bit, the longevity and the production that it takes to really go out there and do the thing is difficult to achieve. And it says more about how impressive, Luke's run of 10 seasons or whatever ridiculous number, I think it was 7, but
who?
Whatever long run he had, that was impressive. And then also just Marcus's consistency in scoring as many goals, especially in the 2 seasons under Rod. Those 2 seasons were excellent seasons. And yeah, I think it just speaks more to that.
I pulled up a Richmond kicker player because I felt it was interesting enough. It's Emiliano Tergazzi. He's 31, Argentinian. He went to Richmond. I think for the 2019 season, I want to say, which was Richmond's first year in League One, and I guess the 2020 season is when he started. Whatever, doesn't matter. And so he's played there, essentially 4 full seasons, 2021, 22, 23.
If you consider 20 a full season, yeah.
And so really 3.5 seasons. Yeah. He's played 94 games in League One.
Okay.
I don't think he's played much this year because he's been hurt, but whatever. He's at 55 goals. And great goal scorer. He won a Golden Boot a few years ago. But that's the type of foreign player, arrived when he was roughly 26, 27, staked out a home in Richmond, wanted to stay. That's the kind of player you'd have to find for us, where it just makes sense for everybody to stay and keep leading the line, etc.
It can also happen that if a guy comes here and then is really good, but marries a girl here, wants to stay here, etc. So there's some stories you can tell on why somebody would stay here. I also wonder, we had the Nisa era where all the Nisa goals get discounted, not from our end because we scored a lot of good goals, and no one's discounting Marcus's goals on this podcast, but the teams in the USL Championship were probably looking at Marcus's goals and going, it's Nisa, I don't know about that. I wonder how teams are going to look at MLS Next Pro going forward, because we've seen guys go from MLS Next Pro, and unfairly categorizing is what I'm saying. we saw guys go from MLS Next Pro to the championship and score a bunch of goals. It's going to be even harder to retain guys that come here and score a bunch of goals because of that transition potentially as time goes on. Where in the past, I think a lot of guys got penalized for being in NISA because of it being NISA, and a lot of teams looking at that and going, I don't know if they can hack it in X, Y, or Z.
I would also add that it's probably worth noting that Marcus's goal tally in for CFC was it 56, 58 did he end on? Whichever one it was.
I think it's 58.
58 was not like exclusively in like league matches or like open that number's a little bit inflated from some friendlies. Like think about,
as with every CFC player,
right?
We count
because of our history, the way we built this thing.
We count friendlies as long as they adhere to certain rules, and we count Open Cup and we count all the other things.
But like look back to, just look at this season so far. Like we're gonna have one Open Cup game and 28 in the regular season, and
we didn't play in the Open Cup.
And like, Birmingham counts for appearances, although I'd need to double check my math before I actually include it. But like we didn't get any goals in that game. So like effectively we're going to have a 30 game season with 28 being like the share of league versus other is dramatically higher. And that's a little bit different from what we're used to. And, there's been no talk this year about the MLS Next Pro Invitational, if that's happening or not.
It's very clearly not happening.
I'm assuming so. Because even NISA Independent Cup got released. So like real behind the eight ball if it is happening. I don't think it is though this year. And there are no other friendlies on the schedule. So like, that's just the way that goes. I'll do my takeaways. How about that? And let's wrap this thing up.
Cool.
Takeaway number 1, don't panic. That goes for you. That goes for me. That goes for all of you out there. Don't panic. It wasn't a great game, but the bounce of the season has been obviously really good so far. And our placement in the table right now is still third after the weekend.
It's still great.
It's great. By the way, if we slip by the time the weekend that we play Crown Legacy in 2 weeks, we finish that weekend and we're in like 4th or 5th because Chicago Fire has a couple games in hand on us still. New York City has a bunch of games in us, but they won't play again until the day after we do. So like, where are we actually in the table? Probably 3rd, 4th, somewhere in there. That's a great place to be because Chicago is a good team. Cincinnati is a great fucking team right now. And they're on an amazing run, and we'll see if they ever drop points. Philly is a great team. Like we're up against some really good teams. And, I think this league, I expected this league to be harder, obviously harder than NISA, but like I expected it to be difficult. And I think it's surpassed my expectations and just like how good it is. Which also means that our start to the season, our first 15 games and where we are is even, yes, we're running hot, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Like we're doing really well, all things considered. And I think that's really important to reference. We're doing even better than I thought in a league that's even tougher than I thought. Don't panic.
Also, don't forget, we're still only 15 games in. There's still noise, and there still can be noise in the data in 15 games.
Of course. Point 2, it's very similar to yours. The spine is our greatest strength, and our spine needs to get back. So hopefully, we're gonna have to do a game without Tolle on a suspension, and that's going to be obviously playing without Tolle in the last couple of games, having him come back, then sitting down again. Like that's going to be difficult. But we got to get our spine back. Hopefully Callum's back for the next game. He was on the bench, so hopefully he's ready to get some minutes. But we need Callum and Alex and Jude and Andres to be to provide that real like solidity in midfield. And we need our defending to get back to where it was. And if we can do that, we're gonna be just fine. And I guess my last one is I'm gonna go to the offensive side of the ball. We got to find a way to replace Jesus' goal contributions. That's having someone that goes out contributing to a third of your goals. That's a problem. And, this is a great time for someone to step up.
Yep.
And,
absolutely.
And we need it. Otherwise it's going to be it could have the potential to be a big lull in the summer. And there's really no time to waste because after this weekend break, this match week break, we'll have Crown Legacy at home on the 6th of July. We'll go the following Thursday to Philadelphia, the following Wednesday to Carolina Core, and then we'll be back at Findlay in 10 days from that. The last weekend of July, and starting at the last weekend of July to the first weekend of October, we play every weekend. None of this midweek crap. It's every weekend, which is a run of 10 games, something like that. Like it's a stretch run, and we got to be ready for it. So, Breezy.
Oh, Toby,
buddy, I'm gonna sign off for a little while because I'm heading on vacation.
Yeah, we'll miss you.
I'll be back after Crown Legacy, and we'll.
When do you get back?
Monday the 8th of July.
Well, you're a loser. I hope you have a great time. We'll miss you, and we'll try to hold down the fort. Listeners, I don't know, and viewers, check us out on YouTube if you're not viewing this. I don't know what the podcast plan is for that period. I'm in my busy CISV camp season, so my camp actually finishes up on the 6th, so there's a distinct possibility we don't podcast at all until you get back. Or maybe I'll get a podcast or two in. We'll see. But listeners, viewers, thank you guys for watching. We love you. And I will see you at Findlay Stadium on July 6th. Peace.